what was your favorite kid song? Since we're just talking about stuff. Since you were talking about kids a while ago.
I have no idea. I'll tell you a song that I heard when my daughter was like 1, and it stuck in my head, and I really enjoy it. I don't know if I can sing it, but it's Your backyard friends, the backyard again. That's a great song. If you listen to that, there's counter melody in it, and there's harmony.
Oh my God!
And the place that we belong, we'll always sing that song.
What is that? What's that from? What is that?
Backyardigans.
Backyardigans.
Your kids were too old by the time that
remember
came.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's jamming.
All right.
Okay.
You stirred some stuff up with that. All right. We are looking for a volunteer to come and say things into microphones.
We do have questions that were written in, so
if
we get to a couple of them as well.
All right, so who's first? We got to roll. All right, we got what's up front.
Begin.
Here we go. So we can move that over there. Awesome, very good. Thank you. When you guys speak into the mic, say your name so that we can get you credit for that, and then state your question. Thank you.
I can put that stand closer.
Huh? Yeah, we can. Okay,
go ahead.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Wynn. What are your views on Trump wanting to end birthright citizenship?
Birthright citizenship.
Okay, so recently.
Well, that's a separate question than can he? The thought of him wanting to do that, and then we can talk about the scenario, and then can he? That'll be two separate things that we'll talk about. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so the situation Trump recently said, and people echoed this. Paul Ryan, who else? Lindsey Graham. They said that they wanted to end birthright citizenship for immigrants or non-citizens that have kids in America.
Yes.
So technically you can be a legal alien, have a kid in America, and then those kids are automatically U.S. citizens because they were born here. I don't know what as far as like some of that stuff goes, as far as people coming in and out, but like if somebody came from Germany and had a kid and then left a week later, so it's got to be a permanent residence of some sort, I'm sure.
I don't know that that's true. I think that we'd have to ask maybe Nixon or somebody to clarify that for us, but I think that if you're here, like it counts. At any
boom, U.S. citizenship,
including the idea that he may be born on an airplane flying over our borders. That could be a thing too, possibly. All right, so this is not the first time this has come up, by the way. Other politicians throughout the decades past have suggested that maybe this is something we need to do. I will say that the statement that he made of us being the only country that does this is absolutely false. We are not the only country that does this. There are about 30 countries that do this in some form or fashion, including Canada and Mexico. So it's not like it's not a thing, right?
Hey, I don't know. Is there music coming from somewhere? Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I can't, when music is playing, this is why kids, when you come to my class, there's no music. And when you go to Franklin's,
there's lots of music.
Because if there's music playing, I can't think about anything but the beat and what's going doom 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 doom. I was about to dance. That's how much of doom doom. So thank you for that. And sorry. And if y'all need to play it, that's fine. I will just
everybody
try to block it out.
We need a soundtrack for our lives. That's what that is. Just in the background all the time. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Anyhow.
All right. So back to Trump. All right. So what do we think about his thoughts on doing that? First and foremost, I think that the timing is interesting. Whether it's something he should pursue or not is a separate question. But because we are less than a week away from the midterm election and it's a heated race across the board in multiple states around the country, I think that this is a tactic to try to encourage people to be afraid and to show, because he tabs that in with the whole caravan invasion thing that he keeps talking about. So as a political tactic, I think it's pretty smart of him to do this because it does rally people around this idea that he's the law and order guy and that they pin Democrats in particular as sort of liberal mobs who want to open border and let anybody come in and do these things. So if that's been his message, which it has been, then the idea that he's standing up to that and we're going to send troops to the border and we got to cut all this off, plus the idea that we're going to curb just immigration generally speaking, who can be an American, who can't, I think that speaks quite a bit to people who are already sort of in tune with the message that he's been giving out, which makes them feel a little bit more secure, which may motivate them to go to the polls and vote for the people who support him. I think that that's the whole plan, is because they lost a little bit of motivation here recently with the shooting that took place in Pittsburgh, and then also with the mail bomb things that were going on. Again, he even said that too. He's like, well, he was upset about those things, but he was also really upset about the fact that they lost some momentum in the election cycle because of it. So I think this is an attempt ultimately for him to take a moment to go, hey, look, I'm still that guy. Remind you. Look how tough I am. Vote for my people. So I think that's that.
Yeah, I mean, he said repeatedly that all Democrats are for open borders, which is ridiculous. Of course not. Most of them, I don't even know if any of them are just for open borders. Just let's tear down the borders. But that's a good thing to say real quickly that gets people scared. And fear is how he got elected, if you remember. You know, if you elect Hillary, the Muslims are going to come kill us all. I mean, that's basic. You might as well say that. She would be weak on terrorism. And so there was a lot of fear mongering before the election. And but once again, it's not like this is the first time that's ever happened. This is what happens before elections. You try to do that last little push. You figure out a game plan. They've been, strategizing this for months. Like, what are we going to do at the very end to try to get that last? And it's the caravan and this little citizen, which, by the way, of course, he said he was going to cut taxes for the middle class last week. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class. When are you going to do that? Probably we're going to look at that today or tomorrow. Of course, Congress has to do that, and they're not going to be back in until after the election. But he was saying that, and you know how many Americans go, oh, yeah, cut class. I'm a middle class person. Yeah, that sounds great. It's not going to happen. So they would have done that with the tax cut.
Or at least not permanently. Like, there are some tax cuts in place, but the ones for the middle class are not permanent. So that's something they can sort of harp on. All right, so to the technicality of it, can he do that with an executive order? And it's interesting because the way he plays this out is like, well, I've got people who are telling me that I can do this, and pretty smart people, just so you know, they're pretty smart, and that I'm listening to pretty smart people and I can do it. That doesn't prove anything in the world. It just means that he has the thought in his head that he can. He can try. That's absolutely true. He does have the ability to give executive orders and to try to do something like that. However, he himself alone, cannot amend the 14th Amendment itself. That takes congressional work plus ratification by the states.
It would automatically be considered unconstitutional because he's doing something blatantly against the Constitution without the official amendment process.
Both houses of Congress would have to get on board with it, and even though he may have some support, I don't think it's enough to get that done. And it would be immediately challenged in the courts, which is, anytime this is ever brought up, people just sort of put a halt to it because we've stood on this idea since the 1800s that we need more citizens and make a path easier for you to become a citizen. That doesn't weaken us. People are somehow convinced that it does. I'm not sure why. I've never heard a lucid argument as to why it should be ended, and I still haven't heard one.
But illegal, there's ways we could solve this to where if you find an illegal alien and they want to and they've been living here and they want to be a citizen, they just go to the back of the line, and we have the sanctuary city. But to say that the illegal immigration's not a problem at all is also false.
Right.
So it seems like it's getting divided. Either we're all going to die, or it's not a problem at all. And the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So
part of the truth is that we have, for years, since I've been paying attention to politics, people talk about, well, we need to fix immigration. People want to come to our country because we have a high standard of living, because we do have social programming, because we do have opportunities, and we do have more sense of equity than lots of other places around the world that they might be, especially the folks that, let's say, we're coming from Central America now, this caravan of people that are coming from Honduras. If you know anything about Honduras at all, if you don't, you should probably go check it out. Like, things have gone downhill rapidly from a really sort of a sketchy place to begin with. And these people are fleeing with their children and their elderly for their lives. To want to come here shouldn't be an issue ultimately, but I think the mass of people moving towards the border is kind of freaking some people out. What do we do when they come through? How do we process that out? We don't do a good job of processing people. That's absolutely true. We don't do a good job of helping people immigrate to this country legally. People who are in desperate situations will do desperate things and then will cross over illegally or whatever. But even with that being said, to get a better process and a more fluid process, maybe for people to be able to come in here and to live and to work and to prosper and to help their families, we should want that. They want that, definitely. We should help them with that. However, that almost nullifies the point that when we talk about illegal immigration. Most people who are here illegally have come through legally with visas and then overstayed their visas. The idea that we're going to shut that down or fix that issue with a border wall or 15,000 troops on the border or whatever, like that doesn't solve that issue. So I'm not really sure where we go from here.
Okay. We'll do one more audience question, then we'll go to the sheet and do a question there. So
Okay.
just come forth.
On a tap, and do you believe that there should be a test people have to take before they can vote to test their knowledge on what they are voting on?
Not until we figure out a test that would be non-discriminatory, non-biased, and I don't know how that happens. I would love for everyone to show that they're an informed voter. That's, of course, less democratic, but, every election year we get everybody on TV going, it doesn't matter who you vote for, just vote. It actually does matter who you vote for, so don't just vote. I don't want people just going in there blindly, that looks like a good name. I mean, we want informed voters. The problem is creating some sort of restriction will always probably discriminate against a group unless there's something I don't know. I don't know how you get around that somehow, but
I don't know. In a healthy functioning republic, you've got people who take responsibility for themselves, but that doesn't mean that we should take the right away from them just because they're not as informed as the next person. I don't know where the standard should be, honestly, to say, do you understand these issues? 'Cause some people don't know the issues until they actually go and look at the ballots themselves and read through the propositions or look at the names. And then, like you said, you want there to be educated voters, but the only way to really ensure that is to actually restrict people. And if you want to get right down to it, that's what the Founding Fathers wanted anyway. So if we want to be really strict about it and go back, I hear people all the time go, well, we should go back to what the Founding Fathers wanted. That doesn't make good sense to me because those people lived in the 1800s.
White male property
they're really,
owners
really,
over
really
clean.
not us. If they came and saw who we were and all the different things that we deal with, technology and the diversity that we have and the openness that we have, they would freak out. This is not the republic they built. Please understand that. This is not the republic the Founding Fathers built.
They created a very restrictive, elite-ran government. And the only part of our whole government that was to some degree, directly elected by the people, and by the way, people was just white male property owners over 21, only that group could vote for the House of Representatives. The Senate didn't happen until later, 17th Amendment. Also, a lot of Americans, maybe half or most, are single-issue voters. And so if you're just going to test their knowledge and they fail, well, what if all they care about is abortion or gun rights or whatever? Then you're taking away some, because they just care about that. So they just know that, and that might be enough. Let me say this as well. People went crazy when Trump was elected. I get it. People focus way too much on the president, way too much. As a matter of fact, if I took a poll, how many of your lives have changed drastically since Trump's been elected? Probably nobody. But you want to talk about what can affect your life is what happens in Arkansas. So when you go vote, hopefully one day, some of you, don't, yes, pick the governor, look at the list of amendments and on the ballot, like that's what affects your life. What happens here in Arkansas locally, the president comes and goes and every now and then, once a year, they'll pass something federally that might affect you, but not even really. I mean, maybe once a year, twice a year. Okay, let's go to the sheet. All right, here's one written in. Okay.
Who is it?
This is to you.
Oh, to me specifically?
Well,
all right.
I don't know if she wants to be identified.
Dear Ron.
Okay, Michaela Davis wrote this to me, but this has been a few weeks ago. But here we go. Defining rape culture as society, where a society accepts, encourages, or doesn't punish people who commit the crime, is rape culture. Is rape culture? I just typed this real quick. Is rape culture a myth? Or does it really exist in our society, as defined as a society that accepts, encourages, or doesn't punish people who commit this crime?
Why is this my question? Which one is that? I didn't even.
It's the last one, but it doesn't.
Okay. Maybe, all right.
Well, I mean, you heard this that America.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah,
promotes
okay,
this. Yeah.
Rape culture, is rape culture a myth, or does it actually exist? Rape culture, like the idea that we look the other way if there are assaults, sexual assaults, or up into and including rape, or the fact that it's underreported, and probably maybe our society functions in such a way that it actually kind of promotes encourages, maybe not directly, but informally, our society is kind of encouraging this horrible behavior. All right, well,
rape's a strong word.
Yeah. So let me try to approach this gently. There are a lot of conservative areas in the world who look down on American society and our culture in particular because we are so open, especially open with our sexuality. We do not shy away from expressing ourselves with our clothing or the lack thereof. We have lots of things like that in media, in movies, in music. We celebrate whether the individual person around the country would actually wear, dress, or act a certain way is not necessarily the point, but the idea that we sort of celebrate the openness of the sexual revolution that we experienced in the 60s and early 70s. That's not something that's well tolerated around the world. Matter of fact, like you can let's use Saudi Arabia for an example, as an extreme example, but people have to be completely women particularly, but men are supposed to dress moderately as well, or modestly. So they look at us and they go, well, how? What's weird is we kind of look at them and we go, how oppressive are they to their women in particular, having them shrouded and that kind of stuff. But they look at us and they go, well, how oppressive are you to your women because you sexually exploit them, you allow them to do this and this. So there's this weird. It's about perspective, I think, part of it, but because we do have individualism and because we do have openness and freedoms, that doesn't enable other people to take advantage of us just because we're dressed provocatively, perhaps. Like that's where you cross the line. It's like looking at something or someone or a situation and saying, I now have a right to abuse that person or take advantage of them because of my own selfishness or whatever. Like that. So I don't know. I mean, there's a certain permissiveness in our culture, but at the same time, we shouldn't step away from the responsibility that we have to control ourselves. Self-control is always going to be a thing. So I don't know that we have a rape culture.
I would say...
This is a difficult question.
No. That's what I would say. I would say we do not have a rape culture. Now, we've came a long way. If you want to go back to the 50s and 60s, go watch some old 50s movies and see how men treated women in the movies. Just that's a cultural thing, right? You got Bill Cosby in the 60s and 70s drugging women and raping them. That was pretty commonplace. He just kept doing it. Yeah. But that was not like people knew about it or knew of it. And other people, it's maybe then, but we've came a long way, I think, in regards to, but the problem today with everything being so polarized and the Me Too movement shining a light on it is you just want to go to one extreme, which is rape. That's a,
right, yeah, that's
no, I don't think we have a rape culture. Now, do we have struggles with, men and women relationship, and are there a lot of pig guys? Of course there are. But no, I don't think, I do think we punish people who rape people, and I don't think, now, you could make an argument that society might promote women to just be objects and movies display them as this and what. You could do that. But I mean, a lot of countries do. France, go to France. Hey, we're about to go to France. Some of you will be shocked. So even though we are pretty open, we're not as open as some countries.
That's
so
true. The changing attitudes in our country about what is permissive, let's say, in relationships, because like you said, for example, you go back in time and you can see that there were laws that prevented women from leaving abusive relationships. If you were, let's say you were married to someone who was very abusive, there was no out for you. You just kind of had to knuckle down and deal with it. But now at least we have avenues where people can get themselves out of situations like that and can come forward with more confidence that they'll be believed. So even if there is I agree with you. I don't think that there's a propensity for abuse.
And I think there's levels to everything, right? Mm-hmm. You just can't you just don't call every sexual harassment rape, because it's not. There's levels, okay? And there's extreme things that happen, and then there's minor things. They're all bad. They're all wrong. We're not condoning any of those acts of sexual harassment, but there's a difference. And what a lot of, especially today, the left, what they want to do is just put it all in one drawer, mm-hmm. and then saying it's all this same level, and it's not. I think anybody with common sense understands it's not the same. And that's what we got to get back to, is case by case. Just looking at something and determine it, and then look at this, and not shoving them into the same drawer. Okay, we'll go back to the audience.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be politics. It can be whatever y'all want to talk about.
Isabella Calhoun, and my question is, Don Lemons, a CNN contributor, said on CNN that the biggest terror threat to America is white males that lean to the left. There is no ban on them, but we should do but we need to do something about them. Considering this, should he be fired or at least reprimanded as conservative Megyn Kelly was fired last week for her racist comments?
Well, no, because listen. I think he's not. Look, this is a commentator who has opinions, and all they care about is clicks and views. I don't think it's hard to get fired as a left-wing liberal on TV these days. There's not much. As long as you're saying that far left stuff, you're fine. If you lean to the center conservative, then you are in danger. Now, what Megyn Kelly said, by the way, I don't even know what she said. I know kind of what she said.
Oh, yeah.
That was wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay, because I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't see it. So maybe, once again, two different situations. Now,
the Don Lemon comment is not going to be considered racist, where the Megyn Kelly comment will be, because white men haven't suffered a history of marginalization. They haven't suffered a history of systematic disenfranchisement. They haven't. I mean, the ridicule that, if you understand what blackface is, if you ever get a chance to study vaudeville, or you go back and look at some of the early ways that African Americans are portrayed.
We'll talk about it. The Jazz Singer. We'll talk about some of this. Al Jolston.
The blackface, specifically, was meant to mock an entire culture, was meant to degrade, was meant to it's humor in a weird racist way. It was meant to belittle. So when she said, well, it was okay as long as you were doing a characterization, she had a very keen misunderstanding of what blackface was ever about. And since white people in this culture haven't experienced that, anything Don Lemon says compared to that is not going to be equated the same. Yeah. So is she welcome to her opinion? Yep. She's also welcome to face the consequences of her actions. If Don Lemon said something very specifically, like all white men are evil and need to go to hell, like that would be very different, right? Or if he had said something about another culture group, let's say Native Americans or Asian Americans, or just, pick another marginalized
Was
group.
she on CNN when she said this?
She was on NBC Today's show. I'm not sure which even show she was on.
Who's she employed by?
NBC.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So that's the difference in the two comments, honestly. Now, was he wrong to say that? I mean, the audacity of that statement, saying that white men are new terrorists in this country and the bigots. Yeah, it's pushing the line, obviously. And I think that probably he may need to come up and clarify a statement of why he might have felt that that's what he needed to say. It's very extreme, that's for sure. But I don't think that it crosses the same exact line for those reasons.
Yeah, let me say this, and this goes into something I want to talk about real quick. But identity politics is a dead-end road. Look, at the end of the day, we all want to be equal. We all want the same rights. We all want to be treated the same. So that means identity politics is a dead-end road. If we keep saying, well, as a white man, well, as a black woman, well, as a gay man, okay, where does that end? That just ends grouping us, and that's not going to ever happen. We have to somehow get away from this. Now, that doesn't mean that certain groups haven't been discriminated against, but if looking towards the future, we've got to get away from that. We got to be, okay, as a human, and then there you go. Then we can discriminate against all the animals, and that's fine. But as a human, and that's what we need to, our end game is. And with that in mind, this brings up what me and him talked about something. There's a psychologist named, I want to say David, but something Rawls. And he came up with a experiment, a thought experiment. It's a brilliant thought experiment. And we're thinking about coming up with some way for you guys in our classes to do this officially, maybe in teams or whatever. But the thought experiment is this, that you have to create a government, a system of laws that would work for everybody. Here's the thing, though. It's called the blind veil. You have to be very specific, because in this government, you don't know what you're going to be. You're going to be randomly assigned a race, a religion, an age, and then so you got to create this government not knowing what you're going to be in the government.
So you don't know how you're affected.
So you don't know how you're affected by it. And we might try, and we'll have to put some frameworks around it, but it'd be interesting to see what people will think is important when all of that's taken away. it'd be easy just to say we're going to all be equal. But I mean, it's not that easy when you start really breaking down the economics of it and society and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, right now there's a case going through that Asians are being discriminated against at Harvard. All right. So that's racism. So the question is, where does there's, I don't know where that's going to end, but they're saying that it's racist for them to not let more Asians in because they're higher qualified than white people and all that. So we had the affirmative action thing, which is helping one group and hurting another. So this group thing eventually has to go. I thought we were going to shake it by now, but we've got right back into it. Okay.
All right.
With that being said, what is the next question?
Hi, I'm Ryan Sarton, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on a universal base income and whether you think it could ever work.
This is when the robots arrive. We have to think about. All right.
I think it's going to be interesting when there's not, we love our unemployment rate right now, although wages haven't went up. But yeah, technology could take half the jobs away immediately. And here's my fear is that whatever leap in technology happens, the jobs will go quickly, and we won't be able to employ people. Because right now you got millions of truck drivers that as soon as the first self-driving truck comes out with no bugs and all that, and a company would be crazy not to use self-driving trucks. So I think immediately you've got a huge population that's out of work and there's just not enough. So then you would have to figure out that they're experimenting with this in some countries. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously the science is still out. I think we're headed there one way or another. I don't see how we're going to get around it. But it would be interesting to live in a society where you didn't have to worry about survival. You didn't have to worry about food, shelter, and love. But so that's taken care of. Then you can pursue maybe more what your interests are. And obviously there would still be incentives to get more, mm-hmm. as there always will be. And maybe your talents can help you get more. But your basic needs would be taken care of.
Where does that? The part about that story that sort of concerns me is that when does the basic become not enough? Because there's always, the idea about capitalism in particular is that we're going to continue to grow the wealth and the capital that's invested in, so the cost of living will rise and all of that. So at what point do we then go, well, check, we have to have this, like we're arguing about, raising minimum wage. We'll have the same arguments about when do we raise the basic sort of income. Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird pitfall. I'm not sure I like it.
What would happen?
But I don't know how we avoid it necessarily.
Yeah, but what happens is when technology gets to that point, the production by the technology alone would be enough. Because they would be able to do a lot more than humans are able to do normally. And there could be synthetic stuff that would also help in this situation.
But again, it's just simple supply and demand, though. If there's all this stuff and people have this want or need to be a consumer and you don't have enough money to do that, they're going to need to be a rate. Or if you can't, or if the cost of things is actually outpacing you. Mm-hmm. What's the basic idea, which is sort of the flaw of socialist systems and communism, was that like, well, here's the basic, here you go. And everybody ended up being really struggling, right? But it was just good enough. So is good enough good enough, or do we find something? I don't know. It's just,
and a basic income in Arkansas is going to be different than if you live in New York City,
right?
So okay, well, we don't know.
It's interesting. I'm not sure how that will work,
but
it may be something that we have to deal with, though, because like you said, the age of robotics is actually upon us. I mean, if we think about Uber being taken over, like there are driverless Uber cars, and what's the other one? Lyft, I guess. Automation in industry is becoming more relevant and prevalent. So I don't know, where do we go? In years past, and let's say the Industrial Revolution, people were worried because, oh my God, all the farmers were losing their job to these machines. I can have a machine that does the work of 100 people. I'm going to fire those 99 people, have one dude run that machine, and I'm good to go. I make lots of money, and I don't have a lot of overhead because, I don't lose the profits. So those other people had to be trained to do, but there were lots of other things to be trained to do, mechanically or agriculturally or whatever. But we've lost that. We're a service-based industry. Is everybody going to be in service? Is everybody going to have, or do we all just become artists and live off the fruitful bounties of the government? I don't know.
Also in America, we work harder than most countries. We work longer. I think a psychological challenge will be when you don't value work. or you value it differently. You know, my dad, just you got to work hard, and then that's nobody. He would be very much against this. He'd be like, no, you just get a job and you work. What if there is no job? There's going to be a job. You just go work. Well, what if there's not? He couldn't even wrap his head. We had this conversation, very short conversation.
You know what? I've got a good job for everybody. You ready? We're all going to go pick up plastic because it's global, right? Down to the bottom of the ocean. We're all going to go get all the plastic out of the ocean and then put it where? Not sure.
Fill the Grand Canyon up with it. I don't know. Can we do that?
Jeez. Yeah.
All right. Another question?
Very good. Yep. Come on.
All right. My name is Chase Hartzell, and my question is, what, in your opinion, is the most important or influential literary work of the Romanticism period in America?
Romanticism. I'm always a big fan of the Gothic horror genre.
The Raven.
Yeah. Poe. Yeah.
So we're talking Poe, Whitman. It's probably going to be that period of time. This is more transcendentalism, but civil disobedience. That's that's up there. That inspired Gandhi. That inspired Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah. I don't know, because it just what I like doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most influential thing. But like I said, for someone to create a genre, let me go back to what I was saying about horror. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein 100 years ago this year. When it was published. That began a movement. That began a genre. That's pretty influential because we still enjoy those kind of stories today. There's no sort of end to the macabre and our fascination with it, because one of our greatest fears is the fact that we understand our own mortality. And so what's the other side? That's sort of the key for Romanticism by itself, by the way, because when we go back into Enlightenment period, part of what they were trying to get across was, well, we need to be more robotic. We need to get away from our emotional side. We need to be logical and stoic, and those things prevent us from doing these weird things that had happened in the past, via, let's say, French Revolution or Reign of Terror and all that. So, but Romanticism then comes back and embraces that emotional side, embraces that weird evocative side that we can't quite grasp, the supernatural, the feeling that there's something there when we can't really tell what it is. Like, so there's this interesting enigma of what is beyond us that I don't think that we can ever get away from. So that is the thing that sort of, that sublimity, the sublime quality to the universe. It's bigger than us, regardless of how smart we think we are, regardless of what we've built. We're small compared to the vastness of the universe. And even though we feel pretty good about ourselves, how consequential are we in the big scheme of things? Those are weird things for us to grapple with, So to me,
The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, sure.
What else? There's some stuff like that.
I mean, there's lots of poets. I mean, we could get into
Whitman, Leaves of Grass.
Portrait of Dorian Gray.
The movement of Transcendentalism and Emerson, the reaction like you were talking about, that the Enlightenment thinkers said you could get everything through your senses. That's all you need. And Emerson says no, that there's something else. It's the inner light. It's your intuition. And so that's what that whole period's about. But man, that's a tough period, because if you ask me about another period, it's probably easier. Like Euclid writing the Elements, the textbook. That's probably the most influential textbook ever written. Yeah. Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Mm-hmm. But the Romantic period's pretty recent, so it's hard to gauge that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question though. We've never had a literary question, but especially about that specific Romanticism. So good job.
Yeah, chapter 15.
Woo!
APUS.
I got you. All right, come on up.
My name's Hayes. Do you guys think that do you guys generally disagree or agree with the horseshoe theory?
With the what now?
The horseshoe theory.
Expand.
Yes, please.
So do you guys know what it is?
No, that's why you need to expand.
Okay.
I know what a horseshoe is.
Okay.
Yeah, the horseshoe theory. Horses need those because they have this one toe.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's the theory that how do I explain it? Okay,
that's
so
okay.
Far right groups and far left parties.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
They're more similar than they are different.
Okay, so yeah, that's cool that you kind of know that. I wasn't sure that was what that was called. If you tomorrow you come into my classroom, look at that big political chart that I've got on the wall. We're going to expand on that, which is sort of a similar thing. Radicals of any side, doesn't matter which side you go, right or left. We tend to think about politics on a linear scale. This horizontal sort of
left and right.
Yeah, they're so opposed to each other. But in reality, the actions of totalitarians, which are really what we're kind of looking at, whether we go far right or far left, they're very, very similar to each other. So I tend to agree that it's not this weird, strange polarization like we tend to think about it. It actually bends and they meet at the top where they become the overlords, regardless of whom who they are or what they've sort of idealized, moving away from the center. So yeah, I think so. What do you think?
If you keep going to the left, eventually you get your extreme form of egalitarianism. Basically, everybody has to be equal. Well, the only way to make that happen is from the government making everybody be equal through basically a dictatorship. If you go the extreme right, you get fascism, which means nothing matters except the state, the government, and the only way to make everyone obey the government is to make everyone obey the government. So it's the same concept. You got to make people do that extreme stuff.
Yeah, you can call it what you want to, but they actually function exactly the same. Which you guys will, I know, as being a sophomore, we're going to teach about this second semester, but you'll see that since you already kind of know that, I think you'll be able to key in on that much faster than maybe some others. So
yeah, but I think we are in a weird period where I think we are what Nixon called, imagine, the silent majority. I think there is a silent majority. There's people in the middle. They're a little bit left. They're a little bit right, but they're not the ones screaming on both ends, so they're never heard. I think that's what most people are. And Nixon called it the silent majority because of the anti-war protest and all that was screaming on that side. And he said, no, there's a silent majority, who elected him in a landslide, by the way. But I think we're kind of in that again.
it's a similar scenario. Yeah, I agree. So just keep in mind, you guys were talking about extremism stuff a while ago. Please understand that it's important to be informed, but it's also important for you to take all of this in a dose of moderation too, because most people, once they get away from the people who scream, are actually pretty similar in the way that they think. We all generally feel that we need the same things: equality and protections and equal rights and opportunities and allow people to function in their own way and to have individualism. Like we cherish those things as a nation, but the people who feel moderately tend to be much more just sort of relaxed and calm and just sort of talk amongst themselves, whereas the people who are on the edges, the extremists, right and left, tend to be the ones who are most vocal, and those are the ones who get the attention of the news media because ratings matter. And so if I'm going to put something on fire on my TV screen because I want you to pay attention, because I want advertisers to be on my show because you're tuning in, and therefore I make lots of money, that's the whole round and round gig, and it makes it feel like the whole world's falling apart. It feels like everything's on fire. And the truth is, that's not the reality that we live in. Please understand that too. Most people, if you can just get away from the nonsense, we'll just sort of, take each other in stride and talk to each other and be okay with each other.
A good rule of thumb for today, a good rule of thumb in the world we live in is if you're not criticizing both sides right now, then you're part of the problem. You're on one of those sides.
The extremes now.
Because I had a friend who said something about liberal, like there's not one thing good about a liberal. And I'm like, okay, well, hang on. Liberals have done a few good things. And then, of course, people on both sides are like that. So be able to criticize both sides.
Yeah, understand there's levels. You mentioned that a while ago. There's levels to every argument, and there are people who are on every level. But again, the noisemakers are the ones who tend to get all the attention. You can pretty much discount them because they're in the gutter, and they're screaming because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah, you can be pro-life and also be for gun control. That could be a thing. Now, I can't think of hardly anybody that's like that because, once again, it seems like you're either all check, I'm all this, or check. That's what I hate the most, and I've said this before. If you tell me your stance on gun control, I can guess the rest. I don't like that. It should be case by case. You should be able, two things can be true at the same time on different sides.
And you shouldn't be afraid. If you're a more conservative-minded person, don't be afraid to lean left a little bit just to see how it feels.
Yeah,
you might think that's okay. Same thing for the left. If you lean left, there are things in your life, depending on the circumstance, that you're going to be like, well, I feel a little more conservative about that now that I know the truth. But we mostly live in the middle, which is the best place, because then we have progress.
Okay, next question.
Catherine Calandro. So this isn't political, but
Yay.
So I wondered what you guys thought about the Mandela effect, or if you believe in it at all.
Didn't we just talk about that?
We not too long ago, I think. So, the idea that there's a weird sort of side phenomenon where I think that, and this is sort of a political thing, maybe after all, is that if you repeat something enough, right, or if there's like this weird sort
is this
of
the Bernstein
the mass
Bears
consciousness
thing that we saw?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, like it's pronounced wrong all the time, so people think that's what it is. I guess I don't know. I think it's a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Listen, our brains are mysterious things. You can take one neuron in your brain and they can kind of, after some work, figure out what that one neuron does as far as input output. But then you got a billion or so or a trillion or so, and it gets all confusing. So, yeah, I have no idea because I think what's interesting is consciousness to me. What is this? What is this consciousness? And I could go down a rabbit hole for a long, long time about just thinking about consciousness. But consciousness is actually all we have. Nothing else matters until you say that consciousness is real, because everything else relies on that. You can't have consciousness not be real and have anything else. So we're all going to say, okay, consciousness is real now, and then you can go down to whatever you want to talk about. But there might be a time where we keep going with AI to where we create conscious AI in a simulation, in a game.
And they will suffer from the Mandela effect as well.
And they will, yeah.
So,
it could be us right now.
I think there's a reality to that, though. I think that there's evidences that show that people believe certain things that are not true, absolutely not true, and provably not so. But
memory's tricky.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So we can see the same thing, and yet I may remember it very differently. My wife and I have this conversation. I'll tell her myself, because I'll say something, and she goes, I'll say, who said that? And she'll be like, you did. I'm like, no, there's no way that I said that. She's like, no, it was you. I remember. And I'm like, I don't remember saying that. I do not remember having that conversation. She goes, no, there's video proof it was you. I'm like, okay, I'll just have to take your word for it. I don't remember it that way. So, yeah.
Here's something else. Something will happen to one of your friends or a group of friends at a place, and you weren't there, but they tell you the story, and then somebody else tells you the story, and then wait 3 or 4 years.
You'll feel like you were there.
You'll remember you being there. And they're like, you weren't there. I was like, yes, I was.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. And it's weird because we rely so much on eyewitness testimony, which is not good. We just had the Kavanaugh thing, but just, no, I remember. Do you? Come on. Memory's sketchy.
That's an absolutely true statement. The idea that you've heard somebody say something so much, you think that you were part of it. Or somebody said, well, that was so-and-so and they were there when they absolutely weren't. Yeah, it's a weird
But we
phenomenon.
value eyewitness testimony in a court of law above just about anything. Mm-hmm. And I think we will eventually get to where that's not the case.
You think that's why the conspiracy
They'll just hook
theories,
you up.
You think that's why conspiracy theories are so easy? Because people are like, I know Elvis is alive. Right? Yeah. That kind of thing. I saw Elvis working at Stuckey's. No, you didn't. Elvis has been dead for a long time. No, you did not. Yes, I did. No. Or I heard so-and-so say that I saw, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right. So Mandela effect, it's a thing.
We got time for a few more questions. So who's next?
My name is Garrett Lee, and very simple question. John Bonham or Neil Peart?
Oh,
John
that's
Bonham.
not simple. Yeah, I'm going Bonham.
Yep.
That bass drum, man.
Everybody
goes Neil Peart, but Bonham, he's underrated sometimes, I think.
John Bonham's ability to make the noise he did, he was unmiked. Please understand.
His kit had a voice.
Yeah.
You can tell when just you hear him, you'll go, I know who that is.
Don Henley, who was the drummer / guitar player / singer for the Eagles, they were recording in England. I don't remember which album it was, and they were working with one of the producers that had worked with Led Zeppelin, and he was like, man, I want my drums to sound like John Bonham. I want to do, and he's like, I want these mics, and I want this and that, and the guy wouldn't do it, and he's like, but I want to get that sound. He said, then hit the bloody drums harder. You're going to have to do it, because that's the way, if you want to make that sound, you got to just physically do it. So, and the complexity of, can you imagine being the rhythm section, trying to make sure that you maintain some stability while Jimmy Page was just ripping it up on, like that guy just kind of went off on his tangents, and you had to figure out how to make sure that you kept everything going smoothly.
I grew up playing the drums. That was my first instrument. My brother was a guitar player. My sister was classically trained pianist. My mom played the organ, so I thought, I'll add a beat. And that's all I did for years and years. But I grew up with, like, my brother said, well, here's the drummer for Winger, and so I'm his. So that's what I was trying to play growing up. And I thought I needed this monster drum set, and I had this like 7-piece with cymbals and the China cymbal. And then you see somebody like Bonham with that little jazz, he just tearing up a little. It's like, oh, I don't need all this stuff. Yeah. And because people that want to play the drums, they think they need all these drums. No, you can do a lot with the snare.
Who's the guy that's the drummer for? We just saw Journey and Def Leppard. Who's the guy that drums for them? I cannot think of his name, but this guy was a
Is
pretty,
it the same one?
Yeah, he was a pretty fabulous drummer before. Like they had this unique ability to replicate live the precision that they came up with in the studio, which is a very unique thing for some bands. And then there was an accident. I don't remember exactly how. I think it was a car accident or the bus crash or something, and he lost his arm. He's like a one-armed drummer, and they refitted the kit for him so that he can use, so he has like different pedals so that his feet can replicate what his arm.
Had
would be
they
doing.
not fired that guy?
And he's still like tears everybody else up.
Think about that. That dude lost his arm. He's a drummer.
Yeah.
He lost his arm.
That's
Def Leppard's huge, and
that's perseverance.
And they're like, you know what? I think we're going to stick with him. What do you got pedals? What are you doing? And then he did it. And of course, I can't even imagine adjusting to that.
In the concert that we saw here recently, they had Def Leppard was the opening act, and then Journey followed. They'd switch out every time, but they both bands had drum solos as part of the show. And even though the guy, and again I wish I knew his name, but the guy that was drumming for Journey, like he was incredible. He did a great job. But at the same time, like Johnny One Arm blew him away, and I was like, wow.
Johnny One Arm.
Yeah,
I think that's his name. I tell you what, you want to see the worst music video ever? The worst.
Worst?
Just, look, we thought it was probably cool back in the day. It is the worst. It did not age well at all. And it is a Journey one, and I don't remember the name of the song. It was one of their big hits. But they are miming that they're playing.
No. Which one
Steve Perry has a little mustache.
Yeah, it's bad.
And they're into it. But like they're playing instruments, and then the instruments disappear, and then they're just into it. And it's ridiculous. And they're just
it's separate ways. I remember.
I don't know how that goes.
Someday love will find you.
Oh yes.
Break those
Chains that bind you. Oh yes. Look up Separate Ways Journey.
It's
the official music video.
It's embarrassing.
And just laugh. It is embarrassing. Yeah, that was a bad time for the 80s.
It's cringeworthy. No, I got one better than that. There is a career-ending video.
Oh no.
There was a really cool dude named Billy Squier.
Ashley Simpson.
A guy who there's a probably from 1980, 81, I think. There was this new dude on the scene, Billy Squier, and he came out. There's a song called "The Stroke." There's like, Stroke. Yeah, Stroke. Man, Stroke. It's about living in the right. All right. So, but he was like this. He was this amazing guitarist. He had cool lyrics. It was deep and it was impressive. And then a couple albums in, he was convinced by one of his record producers to make this video where he was dressed in he was this hard rock leather dude in denim. He was just like down to earth kind of guy. But the guy convinced him to wear like 80s neon clothing, like yoga workout kind of stuff we would see today. But he had like this sweater kind of pulled off the sleeve, and he had like those leg warmers like you would see in Flashdance. You guys ever know what the Flashdance videos are? Okay, so and the song isn't bad, but he did that. He let the guy produce that video, and he never worked again.
Wow.
It was that horrific. I can't remember the name of the song right off the top of my head. I wish I could. Kendra, you and I had this conversation. It's like Rock Me Tonight or something like that. I think that's the name of the song. Look that one up because it ended his career. A horrific decision.
One more question.
Michaela Hickson. Who do you think had a bigger impact on the music industry, Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson?
Just overall impact. Those are the two. Those are 1 and 2 in certain order. Okay, let me think. Overall. Well, listen, other people were doing something not similar to Elvis. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis was there at the time, going crazy on the piano.
Johnny Cash was actually a contemporary. Yeah.
I want to say Michael Jackson simply because he didn't just change pop music, and he didn't just change music videos forever with Thriller and all that, right. Basically making a movie. But he also changed dance. I mean, Usher, if you look at people dance today, they got it from Michael Jackson because he changed the way people danced. But Elvis is quite a bit older, so he.
Yeah, there's still people thinking about Michael Jackson. There are still people who try to moonwalk, even though they do it horrifically. But you go back and watch the first time he did that at the, I guess it was one of the award shows, AMA or something like that, and he broke that out, and the world stopped for a second. Everybody's like, "What did he just do?" It was this. And I still go back and watch. It's on YouTube. You can look at it. Like that moment created. It was a historic moment, honestly. And even though you got the sort of the Elvis, the pelvis or whatever. You got the gyrating hips or whatever. The little funky dance you do, boy.
He was the first one where girls lost their minds. The baby boomers that were growing up, like they saw him. And they couldn't control their
my mom grew up during that era, and she had a cousin who had like an Elvis, like 45 or whatever. These are like small records for you guys that don't know any better. They're not the big LP, the long play records. They're the smaller ones. She said that her cousin had this, but she had to like sneak it into the house because her parents didn't approve of Elvis. And so she would go over there and they would just sit and look at the record cover and drool over Elvis. Like my 75-year-old mother admitted this to me one time, and I'm like, I don't want to know this. So, but anyway.
I mean, but there was like Chuck Berry played rock before Elvis. I mean, there was rock already a little before him. You had Jerry Lee Lewis yet.
Yeah, I don't know that you can make the great argument. I mean, Elvis is still popular within a certain group, but I really don't know. I mean, yes, he's consequential because they sort of made him into something, but I don't know that he was ultimately that talented or that influential on other people.
He's not as talented as no.
That's
a different question.
he stood alone because he had a unique sort of style. Michael Jackson, on the other hand, was immensely talented on multiple levels, and other people try to copy him. If somebody tries to copy Elvis, it's a joke. If somebody tries to copy Michael Jackson, it's an homage. There's an art form to what Jackson's doing. So I would have to pick him.
Yeah, if you're going to impersonate one of these at a party, you're going Elvis.
I can't do that because of Megyn Kelly.
Elvis?
Michael Jackson.
Oh, I can't do that because of the moonwalk and 1,000 other things.
I was talking about the blackface. I'd have to.
Okay, yeah. But if you had to, it would be easy to impersonate Elvis.
Yeah.
You
would know. Yeah, you would know it there. But again, it's a farce. It's not.
Yeah, it'd just be for fun. But if you're really getting in with the glove, you put the hair.
Well, okay.
And then you got to start dancing.
Set your hair on fire. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Also, Michael Jackson is like global, whereas Elvis is not.
Yeah, that's true. Like there are people in China wearing, Michael Jackson shirt. Yeah. He would go anywhere and just get.
I saw a statistic just the other day. Michael Jackson still one of the top earning celebrities, even though he's been dead, 10, 15 years, something like that. I forget exactly
10,
when he died.
12 years. Something?
Yeah, he still makes more money than just about anybody else, which is pretty impressive.
All right, that is the podcast. Thank you to Kollective Coffee for having us out again. We'll be back, hopefully. See you on the flip-flop. Goodbye.